Hey guys, this is Simon here with Cicadas Fly, an Oregon fly fishing blog, and today I have a cicada for you guys for the cicada fly. This big hatch is a big deal this year. This Brood X is two different types of cicadas coming together, hatching at the same time. Unfortunately, we are not going to catch it here in Oregon, but this is for all you guys elsewhere in the country that are going to be fishing these. I grew up in Chicago around cicadas, so I'm pretty familiar with them. I have buddies at home sending me pictures of the trees just covered in them. This is pretty crazy, and I'm kind of bummed I'm missing it. But you guys can catch fish on this fly for us, and you can tag us in it or whatever. But this is a killer fly. It's got a lot of mass to it, so it's going to slap the water like a big cicada will. They're really terrible flyers, so they're pretty clumsy. They end up in the water. So I'll show you guys how I do it in a sec here. So if we're looking closer at this cicada, these things are pretty big, and their colors are mainly black and orange. So we have some orange ribbing on some 6mm black foam, which will help it float quite a bit. The big wings, big red eyes right here. So it's pretty simple fly, but I chose this foam specifically because cicadas are pretty big. I grew up in the Midwest. I always seen them growing up, and they're very big bugs, and they're really clumsy flyers. So when they hit the water to make a little splash, that's like a big deal when you want a fish to come up and look at it. So, you know, a couple of twitches here and there, these legs move a ton, and the bigger deal is this is it's a buoyant fly, but when it hits, it's got some mass. So that's totally why I chose this. It's got a big gap right here, pretty realistic, and it's also just pretty quick and easy to tie. So I'll show you guys how to do it. So to tie this, I have this on a Dr. Slick bodkin that is removable, so you can peel the front off and then lock it in real tight. You can use that Stonefoil extended body tool if you have that, or any other bodkin. This is just nice because it fits in your vise really easy. And so I ran this through 6mm fly foam from Hairline. This is this heavy foam I was talking about. And to rib it, it's pretty easy. We're just going to make a couple of wraps on it, just like this. And we're going to make a couple of wraps and just do a couple whip finishes, and that's how we're going to rib it, just like that. So to lock these thread wraps in place, we're going to do just a thin coating of glue, whether you have Zap-A-Gap. I like Loctite. Everyone's got their own brand they like, but we're going to put a couple of dots of glue there, and then we're going to whip finish. And we're going to do that twice on each segment of the body. So there's one. We're going to do that again. We're going to repeat this 3 times, and then your extended body is completely done. Like I said, this will just help lock in all of these wraps, because you just want this ribbing to stay on this fly, basically. So there's that. I recommend you do not use your fancy scissors for this part, because you're playing around with glue. But then again, we're going to repeat. So we'll probably just fast forward through this, but again, you're just going to want to put a little bit of glue. So this hook I'm using is an Ahrex FW570 number 6. It's the dry long hook. Any big hook like this will work. I like this hook because it's got a big gap. And also the thread I'm using on this is 240 denier power thread. Or I think it's actually one denier power thread. I'll link it below either way. But it's just real strong Vivas thread for this. And so we're going to wrap a bunch of thread back here. And then we actually are going to put a little bit of this orange antron dubbing kind of as a hot spot back here. And also this will just help us lay down, this will help keep the foam in place once we tie in that extended body. So just starting back here you don't need to go all the way back to the end of that thread, because you don't want the body to stick too far back, but we're just going to put down a light little layer of foam, or I'm sorry, dubbing. This will give something for the foam to bite into, because for me there's nothing worse than tying a foam dry fly and the whole body just slides around the whole shank. I hate that. So we'll actually be doing this in conjunction with a little bit of glue, and that'll make things a lot better. Okay, so we've got this up here. We'll take this back to here a little bit, and so we laid our little base of dubbing. And so now what we're going to do is, you have this body, you're actually going to trim a little bit of it off. You don't need it all by any means, and I would create like a little triangle. I'll show you in a minute. This will make it easier to tie on here. You're actually going to make the other end like that too. because that's what the back end of the cicada is going to look like. So this is what your body will look like when you're tying it in, just something like this. And whichever end you decide to tie on in back, you're going to make that the back, and then we'll tie this on. I like to have the bigger end is the back here. And then what we're going to do real quick is, if you have glue, we're just going to put a little bit of glue on this. This will lock that foam in just the way you want it. And just like this, we will clamp it down. And this will keep it from moving all over the place. So then we're just going to cinch this down pretty hard. Now you can see this whole thing doesn't spin. You know, there's nothing I hate more than having it spin all over the place. So we've got our body back here. And so next we're going to take 2mm fly foam, black, high float foam. This is the new stuff. We're going to just tie it up to the eye. Pretty wide section, because this is going to make the head. They have pretty fat heads. You know, it doesn't need to be pretty, because you're going to put dubbing and legs and stuff over it. But it does need to be to the very front of the eye. So if you got you'll kind of tie it tight, and you'll feel it bump up against the eyelid. And that's where you want to be. So that's what you want it to look like. And you can see it's kind of taking shape. We're going to pull the head back over, and this will have it. Now you'll see we have this nice fat profile. So the cicada's head is actually the biggest part. So then what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of elk hair, deer hair, just something for the wing. I'm using yearling elk. And we're going to stack some up, and we are going to do a fairly long wing back here, pretty much to the back of the body. We're going to tie this in just like this. Kind of let it flare out a little bit. You don't need a huge wing, but we can kind of flare it out a little bit. And then we will trim all this excess off right here. So we're getting pretty close now. All that we have to do is put some legs on and dubbing, and we're pretty much good. So this is a grizzly barred rubber leg, medium orange right here. And we're going to tie one of these in. It's on a zip tie, and if you take half of a zip tie, that's long enough for this fly. And we're actually going to have these legs closer back by the wing, actually, back here. And then the quick and easy way to do this that I like to do it is we're going to wrap around this like this around the front. And then this front hoop, you can kind of pull it and get it all even. I'm going to trim a little bit off anyway, so it doesn't need to be perfect. But that way, that's all good. We'll snip this in the front. Get all those extra pieces of hair that are flaring out. So now we're going to put a bunch of dubbing in. So I have some like dark dry fly dub right here from hairline. And we're just going to load this thing up with dubbing. You got to create a pretty big front body, so grab a big chunk of this dubbing. I'm choosing dry fly dub to help it float. If you have like a dark hare's ear or something, that would work fine. I just think it would work better to have a dry fly specific dub for this. And you can use black if you want to like rib it with orange, you can, to maintain that orange body. This fly was just doing something that you could crank out pretty quickly, and that was relatively simple, so I didn't make it that intricate, but you certainly can. You can add some ribbing of some color for the main body here. I think that orange flash in the back is pretty in your face, so I didn't think it needed more. Plus we have the orange legs that the cicadas have too. So pretty much we're going to keep dubbing this. We might fast forward through this too, because this is pretty self-explanatory what we're doing here. So unfortunately, we in Oregon here, we're going to miss this cicada hatch, but this is for all you guys that are fortunate enough to be able to do this, whether you're doing carp or bass, or if you got some big trout eating these bugs. I hope you guys catch some fish for us, because it is missing Oregon here. We're doing this just for you guys especially. So as you can see, this head is a little bit smaller. We're going to add just a tiny little bit more, because like I said, that head is like one of the biggest parts of the cicada. And we'll add a little bit more and chuck the eyes in, and then from there it's like really simple. We're pretty much done. So and then for this last dubbing noodle that you're going to add, you're going to make the bottom taper pretty long. It'll help it just look a little more clean. Because we're going to wrap back by the wings to do the whip finish. So now that the head's full enough, we're going to add just a thin noodle to kind of traverse that thread back without just leaving a bunch of orange thread. If you don't really care, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to do this part, but to make a pretty fly, this helps a little bit. So as you can see now, I can move this thread back without it kind of showing up here. So now, last thing we're going to do is, this is orange fettuccine foam from Hairline. We're going to take a tiny little bit of glue here to lock these eyes in. Right there. I'm going to stick that in right there. That'll lock that in. We're going to pull this back. And then we will clamp this down, and that'll make the head. So now you've got a big old durable cicada. You can cut it in a little triangle right here. And then we'll do a little whip finish with some dubbing to kind of hide it. And then it'll be done. Just since this thing, I know, is going to get beat up real bad by any big bad fish that wants to eat it, I am going to put a little bit of glue down where I'm going to whip finish. I'll put a little dot of it, but this thing's pretty much done. We'll just trim the eyes off after we do this last whip finish here. So that's all locked in here. And then these eyes, what we're going to do is we're just going to trim them real close here. You've got one eye, two eye. You can see them right there. These legs, you can keep them long. You can make them kind of short. I like the length of those right there. But the last important part right now is I'm going to put a little dot of glue right here. And I'll probably put a little dot of glue right on the side here just to help. In case it gets beat up real bad, it'll keep that whip finish together. So this is the 2024 Brood X Cicada. It'll slap the water real hard when you fish it. Whether you're doing carp, bass, trout, whatever, this is a fish catcher for sure. So if you tie some up, tag us in the pictures, or tag us in some fish pictures that you catch. Thanks.